Hello everybody and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities space. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the CEO of Callinex Mines, a company advancing its portfolio of base and precious metals rich deposits located in established Canadian mining jurisdictions. It's Max Porterfield. Great to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I had you on the show last year, so I'm very excited to talk about copper, gold, and get an update on Callinex Mines. And I want to start the conversation off with copper. I'm wondering, what are the main trends and themes you're currently watching in the copper space that you think investors should be paying attention to?
Well, I think it's going to be mine supply. Demand's pretty well mapped out there. You can have some demand come off, obviously, in a recessionary environment where global growth might be a concern, which is, I think, hit copper in the more, past several months here. But again, mine supply has been the recurring issue. And if you look at supply growth in copper, it hasn't been made through new discoveries, and the declining grades globally are going to have a big impact on the price action moving forward. With everything that we know about demand staying pretty consistent.
Well, talk to us about the electrification side of things, because obviously we're seeing government policy move in the direction of further electrifying the world. Talk to us how that story plays a part of it. Do you see the increased adoption of electric vehicles actually coming into play? Because obviously you need copper for the charging stations. What are your thoughts there?
I think that, again, government policy is going to drive change, and whether you like it or not, those policymakers, they beat to their own drum and drive what their vision is for the people. So again, that adoption is just beyond electric vehicles. Any kind of small combustion engine is also part of that. I'd say I probably have 20 times the amount of batteries today than I had 5 years ago in my own household. I think that's going to be an ongoing trend. And if you look at the copper intensity that these batteries or electric vehicles consume or utilize, compared to a traditional vehicle, for example, it's multiples in terms of your copper needed to really roll this out. So again, government policy is going to be a precursor to change. In terms of the vehicle market, it's similar in terms of when everybody put in place for catalytic converters in traditional gas combustion vehicles to clean up the environment. That put a huge new demand and industrial demand on the platinum market, because you need some platinum in catalytic converters. And in turn, you had a big move in the platinum markets. And what's going on here with this electrification is on a different scale than even that. And again, you have to see where you're going to get that mine supply to meet that need, because you're pouring on new demand in new ways. And this is beyond any kind of global growth that would inherently consume more. And beyond electrification, government policy around infrastructure spending is going to be a huge driver for base metals. And if you look at the infrastructure in North America, it certainly needs to be updated. And if you look at the big One Belt, One Road initiative out of China in particular, that's an infrastructure project the world's never seen before. And they're dead set on rolling that out. So again, government policy is going to drive huge demand. And we're seeing that play out in multiple facets around the world today. That's going to have a big impact in a positive way for the copper market and base metal market overall.
Right, and that's a great example with platinum and catalytic converters, just to see how much that particular technology drove the platinum market as well. I spoke to Willem Middelkoop recently, and he pointed out that demand from Asia resulting from an emerging middle class requiring more electrification is one of the main drivers he sees for copper. We were talking offline before we hit record today, and you said that's kind of a story that's been around for a while. So I'm wondering how you've seen that particular narrative evolve. Is that a catalyst that you also think will be driving the copper markets up ahead?
I completely agree with Willem on that sentiment. I actually just recently came back from a trip to Shanghai. And the scale at which they do things, and the reason why I mentioned China and India are huge populations relative to, the United States, for example. And the rise of the middle class there is a big thing, and a big trend, obviously, that will lead to base metals and metals consumption in general. Because as you your incomes increase and you want to have a nicer quality of life, you're going to suddenly get a refrigerator. Well, there's a bunch of metals in a refrigerator. Those type of items and those type of things are all going to incrementally have demand on the metals market. And in turn, that's going to drive and have a big impact on prices as you have that consumption increase. So again, I'm in agreement with that. That's a long-term trend. And then you have that coupled with infrastructure, the electrification, are all big demand drivers on a commodity that hasn't had the supply growth that you'd expect it to have when you have the demand profile that's been changing the way it has clearly been changing over the past 10 to 15 years.
I think most people also don't appreciate just how much time and capital it takes to bring a copper mine into production. People think, oh, we need more copper. Well, we'll just go dig it out of the ground. But the cost is insane, and the amount of time it takes to bring a deposit from discovery to production is also massive. How can we address these challenges moving forward to extract the required copper the world needs? There's also jurisdictional risk I should throw in there as well, because a lot of these countries and governments who are, banging the drum for electrification also don't really want mining in a lot of their areas. So how are we going to solve this issue?
Well, I think policymakers need to get in line in terms of the policy they put in place that has big impact on demand, and then how are they going to, on the flip side, meet that demand with the inherent systematic challenges that are there around that. In copper in particular, if you look at where the supply growth from copper has come from over the past 10 to 15 years, that has really been growth of known reserves at existing mines. And that can only go on so long. If you look at Escondida, for example, when that started producing, that's a huge copper mine in South America. I think the grade there at Escondido is about 1.5% copper. And now you're down to, I think, 0.4% copper there. The global average grade of copper mined around the world is less than 0.5%. So again, you need exploration and you need new discoveries. And that's something that the industry overall has been really lacking because of a lack of incentive price for explorers to go out and take that risk. Now, in terms of the time horizon from discovery hole to production, it can be decades. In Canada, it's recent stat was 18 and a half years from discovery to production in Canada. And I think, from our standpoint, if you want to make it easier on yourself, you kind of go to where you're welcomed in existing mining communities to make discoveries. And that's certainly how we've aligned ourselves. But I think, again, you're going to need a lot more money that goes into the exploration industry. And you're also going to need the appetite out there for these very, very, these mega projects, these big low-grade open pit deposits to get capitalized, because those are in the billions of dollars, right? So again, you haven't seen that. And really the only thing that you've seen more recently is just acquisitions and M&A occurring on existing assets, right? But that's not going to solve the supply problem, because company A buys company B. That doesn't mean any new copper gets produced. That just means you have a consolidation and maybe you have some synergies in terms of reducing costs for that particular operation. So again, I can only beat the drum so hard on exploration being critical, and the only thing that's going to drive that's investor risk appetite, going that way, which is going to ultimately be driven by the underlying commodity price to get people excited, whether it be for better or for worse. Oftentimes you see a big move in one underlying commodity, everybody jams into that one underlying commodity, but then is that money spent in the right way? So again, there's a lot of, I think, issues within how these capital markets work, specifically around mining, that have an impact on ultimately mine supply, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Absolutely. And in just a moment, I want to get into how Callinex Mines fits into the picture. But first, I want to touch on gold, because last time I had you on, you spoke about a lot of the macro drivers providing tailwinds for gold and why you thought the price was headed higher. That was in April of last year when gold was around 2,000. We've now broken above 2,500 to about 2,570 and change. Are we still in the early stages of an extended bull market for gold in your view?
Yeah, I do. I think around the world, we're really in this kind of like the 1970s all over again in terms of this really inflationary period. Government spending has gotten out of control, and that's certainly not going to change. And you've seen the gold price rally in a rising interest rate environment. And now with the Fed looking like they're going to have to reduce interest rates, up in Canada, they've been reducing interest rates, a few times more recently. I think that's going to, again, pour more fuel on the fire for gold moving forward. In terms of technical resistance to 2000, that's what gold, when we last discussed, it been kept hitting that resistance and finally broke through in a meaningful way. And not immediately, but very quickly, it's gone to where it's gone to its all-time highs. And, I think we've just really, truly gone through the first wave of inflation. If you look at the 70s, there were multiple waves of inflation when they thought everything was okay, when it quite really wasn't okay. And I think that, for better or worse, that's the situation where we're in. And you just got to navigate that situation with understanding of that's where we are, right? So it's very constructive for gold, the precious metals, all commodities and real assets, in my opinion. I guess that's just what we're going to deal with, and take advantage of the opportunity while you can and position yourself to benefit from that.
Absolutely. And another topic we discussed was de-dollarization. A lot has happened on that front as well. How do you see that story progressing? Obviously, this is not something that happens overnight. You mentioned that last time we talked. This is a long-term trend. It could take years. It could be a decade before we see the US dollar dethroned, in my opinion. How do you see that narrative progressing? Do you believe BRICS is gaining momentum at the moment to potentially move towards some kind of maybe gold-backed or commodities-backed currency outside of the US dollar?
Well, I can tell you the Chinese in particular have been pretty adamant about wanting to diversify that. And I actually, when I went to Shanghai, I was invited by one of the state-owned gold mining companies there to the Chinese Gold Congress. And it was very, very impressive to see how aligned, not with just in the industry, right? Because we can all get aligned with an industry because industry is all supportive of, extracting gold or, making discoveries. We're all supportive of that. But to see the heads of like the big insurance company, for example, coming to speak about how important they see gold as an asset class to invest their premiums into, right? And so this is something that is beyond culture, a big move taking place. And in terms of the US dollar, you can only move away from it so quickly. I think that's going to be an ongoing theme. Again, look at the United States and state of the political regime, on both sides of the equation. And I don't think, I'm an American here. Speaking as an American, I'm a dual citizen also of Canada. I don't take a lot of pride when I unfortunately speak about the current political situation in the United States. And unfortunately, I don't think policymakers are actually looking in the best interests of the people. And that's what democracy is built on. And so we're at a very unique time in the world today. I think things are certainly going to improve, but where do we go from here before that improvement starts happening? Because I do see a lot of concerns in terms of where's the rule of law and where's the foundation that these Western economies are built on? Because, American politicians historically have done a great job pointing a finger at the rest of the world about how this is how things should be done in different ways. And now I'm calling to question the rest of the world should be looking at the United States and saying, you've been a leader in how the world should be, how you should run an economy in respect for people and everything like that. And we've exported that around the world, in terms of the American culture, and the rest of the world's really loved the American culture. And that was great for a while. But now I think the rest of the world's looking at the American culture going, what happened to the USA? And I think hopefully people in the United States are also asking the same question, because you've got to hold these policymakers and the people that are governing accountable to rule for the people in the best interests of the people. And I just simply don't think that's happening on either side. And it's a real shame, truly. Not to be it's depressing or anything like that. It's truly not what I'd like to see. Not only just for our current generation, but for generations to come. Like, what are we putting in place in the world today for our children and our children's children? And I think that everybody is looking at me, and we've become a me society. And we've also been a society that's so short term. Everything is about that moment, the fear of missing out and having what I want today, with total disregard about the implications of anybody else around them in that current moment or the future. It's a very selfish world that we certainly seem to be transitioning in. There's no regard for your common man. It's like, what happened to having a community? And, I was having a conversation here at a conference, but, it really only seems that we only get united when we're at a war. And is that part of the model? oh, when we're not united, let's get a common goal against an enemy. And then we can reunite ourselves, right? The most united I ever saw in the United States as we come on the anniversary of 9/11 was after 9/11, because everyone put their differences aside and said, oh, we've got a common enemy. Let's be nice to each other and appreciate each other and appreciate America. But why do we need, or any country that you're in, quite frankly, this is all around the world for everything. But why do we need to have an enemy to have a common goal? Why can't we have a common bond and goal to create a better environment for ourselves, our families, and our surrounding communities? And, I know this is a little bit off base from the metals and mining thing, but this all has an impact on metals and mining at the end of the day, because the metals are the building blocks of the economy.
No, it absolutely does, and it's not off base at all for this show. I have entire episodes about these topics you're talking about. The rule of law is getting trampled on in the West. Most politicians at this point are a criminal cartel who exist only to serve themselves and their small circle around them.
I get worried about what I say. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I get worried about what I say, but it's kind of like these political parties are like the mafia.
Yes, they are.
And then you get the mob boss, and then you don't know who picked the mob boss, and boom, there's the mob boss emerges.
And
right?
You don't know who's behind the mob boss.
Yeah. Who's behind? Who's actually controlling the narrative? Because I think the people are starting to see that the leaders that you thought were leading, they're not the leaders. There's certainly more behind them that are telling them what to do, right?
Absolutely. Well, let us shift to Callinex Mines now, because I'd love to hear your vision at the moment for the company. Now, for those who are hearing about Callinex for the first time, you spoke about it in the last time I had you on, but it's been a while, so maybe you could start by giving us an overview of the company.
Yeah, certainly. So we have, we're known for some very, very high-grade copper-rich discoveries in northern Manitoba, which is a province here in Canada that's had over a century of mining. And the community that we're involved in, Flin, Flon, Manitoba, was built on mining. Our project portfolio expands beyond just Manitoba, but we're also in the Maritimes and Eastern Canada. But our flagship is our high-grade copper discoveries at our Pine Bay project. This has been a long-term vision for us to execute this. This is a situation for Flin Flon in particular, talking about community, where you've had a community that's been mining in this town for a century. And this is a town of 5,500 people. That mine employed 3,000. I'm sorry, I have a couple thousand people. I don't remember the exact off the top of my head at this moment. And beyond that, all the jobs and the support around that central mine are obviously all integrated. So with the shutdown of that flagship mine in 2022, that's put a jeopardy around the future of that community. And our long-term vision is always to find the next anchor mines to continue that long history of mining in northern Manitoba, which we're very excited about that. So we've had a number of discoveries. Our most advanced discovery is called Rainbow. And after thunderstorms, rainbows always emerge. And so that's kind of the situation that we certainly have in that community. And that's what Rainbow represents. And the other discoveries that we're unlocking through exploration in our ongoing exploration campaigns that we're doing right now with drilling.
Fantastic. Well, could you provide some more detail on Flin Flon, as a jurisdiction, the infrastructure in place, your relationship with the local government and community, any other details you think it's important for people to be aware of?
Well, yeah, Flin Flon, is built on mining, going back to the original Flin Flon deposit, how the town got its name, and it's had a long history there. There's been 32 mines, and I'd say counting because it's not over for Flin Flon. Flin Flon has had its back against the wall and numerous times and has always bounced back with a new discovery. And so, again, that's been our long-term vision. We didn't think the end was in sight for the Flin Flon Greenstone Belt. We believe that area of the world is going to host many more deposits to come. And we're excited to do that. We've had a lot of support from the surrounding community. Just from people on the ground are super supportive of us, so we're very appreciative of that. We even had the local neighbors bringing the drillers cookies last Christmas when they were drilling on Christmas. So again, we're all in. We work around the clock to meet that goal. The government of Manitoba has been super supportive of mining as well. They've consistently been supportive of mining. There's a rule of law and a regime and a permitting process that's been well respected and been around, a century, that has been supportive of mining. We've also been benefited from a number of government grants. We've gotten over $1 million in grants in support of our discoveries revitalizing northern Manitoba. And we're very pleased to be able to be a part of all this. And quite frankly, again, that's why I'm so excited and my colleagues are so excited and get up every day is it's one thing to make a discovery, but it's another thing to make a discovery that has a big impact on people's lives beyond needing the overall supply. And the livelihood of the people in Flin Flon was relying on mining, and we're steadfast, committed to making this happen, and the discoveries speak for that.
You recently announced that you've commenced a 2024 exploration campaign at the Pine Bay project. Walk us through what your plans are there.
So we're doing a 5,000 meter campaign this year. We commenced that just about a week ago. It's twofold. So the property, again, has had the pedigree to host a major discovery on there. And exploration at Pine Bay dates back to 1911. And we've made a discovery in an area of that property that everybody had gone to looking, this based upon the local geology at surface in this particular area of the property, has always led numerous explorers, over a dozen exploration companies, to believe that there's a large deep-seated high-grade copper deposit to be found there. And we had a big discovery hole in that particular area of the property last year, which we've named the Descendant. The discovery of that hits, and the number of hits that we've hit there since that time. And so we're doing a step-out drill hole at Descendant to vector towards the high-grade portion of where we believe that deposit sits. And so that's going to be a part of this upcoming exploration campaign. We've also outlined 3 additional target areas called Poseidon, Odin, and Ra that have the potential to host additional near-surface copper mineralization that we'll be targeting in this upcoming exploration campaign. So again, the most exciting part of the business, the biggest part of the business in terms of wealth creation, comes from exploration. And that's what we're certainly eyeing down with our current exploration campaign, is a new discovery, and to expand the current discovery at Descendant as we advance our Rainbow and Pine Bay deposit and early stage permitting, which is critical to get these deposits turnkey and ready to go into production scenario.
Well, talk to us about the Rainbow deposit. What work have you done there to date? What are the plans moving forward?
Yeah, that's actually a good example in terms of where we've come, because where we are with Rainbow is where we want to go with Descendant in these other target areas that I just mentioned to you. So Rainbow was a target that we had generated through quite a bit of work the previous year and a half leading into this discovery. And we hit the first discovery hole into the Rainbow deposit in August 2020. So that was actually a unique time, if you can remember where we were in the world, but that was when we were all in lockdown at our homes. That shows you how supportive the government is too. We were the only exploration drill rig turning in the province of Manitoba at that time. We were very grateful to be able to drill that hole because it led to a beautiful discovery in Rainbow. So Rainbow is a very high-grade copper deposit. These deposits in Manitoba also carry gold, silver, and zinc as byproducts. They're polymetallic deposits. And so since that time, we put over 80,000 meters of drilling into Rainbow and culminated with the maiden resource, which we announced last year. So Rainbow is just under 5 million tons of high-grade copper. The most refined area in terms of, there's different categorizations based on your drill spacing in a deposit. But in the indicated category, that grades 3.44 million tons of 3.59% copper equivalent. And of that, 3.14% of that is copper. So in terms of how rich that is, I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the average grade of copper mined around the world is less than 0.5%. To get these type of high grades that you have, more often than not, they're known to exist outside of Flin Flon, is in Central Africa and the DRC and the Congo. And I've actually had the opportunity to visit the Congo on a holiday to see some wildlife there. And I could tell you the first thing I told myself when I got there was this might be my last visit to the Congo. And I'm certainly, while I respect everybody that explores that region of the world, this place is certainly not for me. I like where I'm at in Manitoba. And again, that's what you have in Manitoba. You have exceptionally high grades that stand out on a global basis and rival the high grade deposits that are famed for coming out of the DRC. But you're in Manitoba, where you have clean, low-cost hydroelectric power. You've got a stable jurisdiction in terms of there's no unrest to that degree. I mean, I think the biggest thing that might happen in Flin Flon's a bar fight on someone's birthday or something like that. And we're welcome there. People want us there, and every mile market, you don't have someone on the side of the road with an AK-47 looking at you, wondering who you are and are you a spy. So with that being said, we love Flin Flon. We love Manitoba. pleased to be there, and the discoveries are very, very unique on a global basis in terms of the pedigree and the grade, and that's why we're in Flin Flon, and that's why Flin Flon has become so famous around the world over the past century.
Well, talk to us about the team behind Callinex Mines and how you plan to leverage their experience and their expertise to move the projects forward.
Yeah, so listen, I'm kind of obviously an entrepreneur. I'm the CEO of the company, set the vision and the tone of the company, but to find these discoveries, you've got to have the technical expertise and acumen to do that, and you've got to constantly evolve. And so we have an excellent team. Our team, and when I first came to Callinex and realized this opportunity, you had a short list of who you had to recruit to the team, and it was kind of like we got to put together the dream team. So we do have a dream team, I believe, and I'm very, very proud to be working with these individuals that have been credited with the discovery of half the mines in Flin Flon. And quite frankly, if I could go get Tom Creighton, who was credited with the discovery of the original Flin Flon mine that operated for over 60 years, I would, but he's long passed because that discovery was made in the early 1900s. But again, our technical teams found 3 of the 4 largest mines in that, and they've also, from an engineering perspective and financing perspective, built some of the biggest mines in that community. So again, everybody's aligned because they don't need to come to work. Quite frankly, I brought them all out of retirement on some level. They're doing it because they care about the community. We're a community-oriented company. And again, everybody's aligned to that ultimate vision that we've set for the company.
Well, I'll end by opening the floor to you. Is there anything else you think it's important for potential shareholders to know about Callinex Mines?
Well, listen, I'm the largest shareholder of Callinex Mines, so our interests are completely aligned with all equity investor interests. And, I put my money where my mouth is, and as you've probably learned from the past 2 interactions we've had, I definitely am opinionated, and I've got a big mouth. So we're all aligned here. And again, we're in an ideal situation. We've got expanding high-grade discoveries. We've got an area that's advanced permitting, hydroelectric power on site within 30 minutes from a community that desperately needs that mineralization to eventually go into production scenario to continue that long history that they have and create the jobs and maintain the jobs that they, are living there with their families in need.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to put a link to Callinex Mines' website as well as social media in the description for people who want to stay up to date with the company. Thank you once again, Max. It's been a blast, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, and I look forward to next time.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.